now. So we visited Eastern Asia a few times. We've looked at Mongolia, we've looked at China, we've looked at Japan, we've looked at, okay, I know Australasia isn't in Eastern Asia, but in that neck of the woods. And we're looking at Siberia today. And the thing with Siberia is it opens up some interesting and intriguing areas that give answers to questions that we've asked in the past. And we're going to start directly at the top. So this map itself, as you can see, within this landscape of Central Asia, Central Russia. So we go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They are on the border with Mongolia. Now, site 1, they found something absolutely amazing. But to some people, it wouldn't be amazing. Actually, that bone on the right there. And that bone itself gives us so much information. And the information that gives us is as follows. Genetic research sequences help us understand old Siberian man. That's part of the title that I've got in front of me. A large team of genetic scientists led by Harvard University managed to recover and sequence the DNA from this thigh bone of a male hunter-gatherer who lived in what is now southern Siberia 45,000 years ago. Now, what is intriguing about this bone is we don't really understand where the bone of this individual came from. We know this individual is a hominid, and we also know that this is a hominid similar to the ones that supposedly left Africa 40,000 years ago. Cro-Magnon man and all that type of stuff. But this bone itself dates not to 45,000 years ago, but start again. This bone doesn't date to 40,000 years ago. This dates back to 45,000 years ago. So this bone relates to somebody who had come from somewhere, whether they came out of Africa or the multi-regional approach. So this bone was found at number 1 on the chart in front of you, alongside an eroding riverbank known as Ust-Ishim. And then, amazingly enough, a little bit further south, well, a few hundred miles south actually, but on this map, a little bit further south at number 2, at the Hagiraskia cave, they found the remains of Neanderthals. So that's really interesting. You've got the remains of somebody dating from 45,000 years ago. Then a little bit down the road, you've got remains from a Neanderthal in a one cave. And then at cave number 3, at the Okhladnikov cave, you've got more Neanderthal fossils. But what is massively of interest here is that at cave number 4, you've got fossils of another hominid, Denisovians. And then number 5, you've got the remains of hominids from 10,000 years ago. Now, today, I can't remember exactly what they said, but one of the group in Lanford Major said that it's now likely that everything that I've been saying about hominids being evolved from various different lines today is actually fact. This is what they're seeing. They're actually seeing DNA in some bones, in some areas, having Homo erectus DNA, Homo Homo sapien DNA, Neanderthal DNA, Denisovian DNA, different types of DNA. So this is all massively important. So in other words, we're getting to the point now that we're getting a mix of hominids developing on this planet, interbreeding with each other, multi-regional approach, developing in different areas. So this bone itself that you've actually got on your screen was radiocarbon dated to 45,000 years ago. Well, that's fine, but it's not fine because radiocarbon dating, you really can't really get good samples of radiocarbon beyond about 40,000 years ago. But this one, the molecular structure and the evidence associated with this single bone, this femur in front of you, this male femur in front of you, gave us a great deal of information. And it also gave us, tell you what, if we don't do anything else today, let's just mention this. I sometimes say that, as you know. Whilst they analyze this bone, I know it's a lot to go on, but Bill will know how excited I got with the impression of a textile strand on a piece of Neolithic pottery at the Ness of Brodgar that was identified this year, right? This bone itself, from a sealed, stratified deposit, told us that the individual main diet was not red meat. This person was a plant eater and a pescatarian. There was no other evidence of red meat, no other evidence of eating mammoths or anything like that. This was 45,000 years ago. He's not eating mammoths. He's not eating auroch. He's not eating, he's a plant eater and a pescatarian, likes eating fish. And that's it. Applying to the plant life, right? And that's amazing because we always think of our Cro-Magnon man going around with big clubs, banging animals on the head and eating the meat raw, that type of thing. That's not actually the case in regards to this bone. Now, that is fascinating. That's a wonderful piece of archaeological evidence. The sample was remarkable because of the extraordinary preservation of its DNA, as I've already said. And amazingly enough, the genome sequence that they extracted associated with the DNA, the sequences preserved in this bone were far better than some of the genome sequences extracted from some modern day human beings. So this is an amazing, very, very rare find. These things are being found more and more these days. More and more of our past is unraveling. But let's not get in an argument about it. Let's just put it there and just chucking it in there. Like somebody chucks a card on the table and you wonder what's on that card and you're not gambling for money. You're just having a nice old game, nice old card game. This is how history and archaeology should be done. You dealt that card and you read it. Okay, it's an ace of spades. Oh, wicked, that's great. It's a 10 of clubs. Brilliant, that's great. What does that mean? The sequence revealed that the bone came from an anatomically modern humanoid. So in other words, developed like me and you, right? Whether there's Denisovian in there, whether there's Neanderthal in there, Heidelbergensis in there, whatever. But as the person's developed, the bone sequence, that person is a fully developed human being 45,000 years ago. And this is the oldest pure human. When I say pure human, you know what I mean. The multi-regional pure human, right? A bit of Homo erectus in an Aboriginal person and a bit of Homo sapien Neanderthal in my DNA. That's what we're talking about, mixed, right? That's what I mean by pure human. I don't mean pure human as in the pure Aryan race and all that stuff. I mean the mixed, multi-cosmopolitan humanoids that you see around us today, right? It's all mixed, right? So this bone itself is the oldest one ever dated from outside Africa. It's older than, you know, it's an example of something very special. Comparisons to diverse humans around the world today show us that the Ust Ishim man was a member of one of the most ancient, listen to this word, non-African populations. That's just takes you back a bit, doesn't it? It's different from everything that we were taught at school. Basically, a line came out of Africa, over there, over there, there, over there, they all went, and this was that, right? So the ancient Siberian at this locality was related equally to West European hunter-gatherers, North Asian hunter-gatherers, and East Asians, and the indigenous people of the Andaman Islands off South Asia. Then he was related to out of Africa. You know, that this person was out of Africa before people came out of Africa, if you can work out the gist. This person's developed out of Africa before anyone else is developed coming out of Africa. What does that mean? No, we're not going there. You don't need to. That's enough. But when we were looking at Australia, I said, look, lots of people are arguing that when the early hominids get to Australia, they're not actually, the route directly along the coast from Africa doesn't look right. It's almost as if they're in Australia. Is it out of Australia? Is it coming into Australia from the likes of Japan or China or something like that, right? So this multi-regional approach, the data, this bone tells us of a really interesting data set. And the other thing as well is what we got to look at is the close relationship with the Neanderthal Denisovian sites that you can see on your little map there. So what we talk about when we look at this is sort of mutations, how humans mutate and how we develop into where we are, all those little bits and bobs in our system. Now, there's something rather more massive about this find. This person shows signs that maybe they developed out of somewhere, out of Africa or wherever they developed. Their early thumbprint, their early origins to where that bone is there now, maybe that's been a developmental process, not going back 380,000 years ago, you know, with the split between Homo sapiens and Homo sapien Neanderthals, right? Whenever that happened, whatever, if it came from one species, missing link, Charles Darwin and all the rest of it, right? But this individual's been developing the DNA that they've got from somewhere from the time span of about 770,000 years ago. 770,000 years ago. This is at the same time that we got the evidence of Homo erectus in China, at Beijing and Japan. So this Siberia, we had to go to Siberia to sort of get us really excited about somewhere else. This is not actually what I was meant to be doing today. But on Tuesday, when we were looking at this, I said, look, Mike, look at this. And we got really excited about it. So basically, there's all these mutations. There's this idea of you know, tool making and so on. The implications is that the spread of modern human behavior must have been cultural, at least in part, based on the genetic dates. It cannot be the case of a single population that developed modern human behavior spread all around the world, replacing other humans who already lived there. That's what that said. That's what this says. The scientists are now saying that. They're saying that it wasn't out of Africa, or it wasn't out of one place. Very careful what I'm saying here, because I don't want to dismiss the just out of Africa thing. I don't agree with it. I can't dismiss it, right? So what we're talking about is that to develop where we are today, we need Homo erectus. We need Heidelbergensis. We need Homo sapien. We need Homo sapiens sapiens. We need Neanderthals. We need Denisovians. We need Homo florensis. We need all these different types of hominids to get together and have that intercourse to develop their ability to be modern day human beings. And when I used the word intercourse, I didn't mean it in a sexual way. I meant intercourse within trade, cultural links, sexual intercourse. I meant the word intercourse in the sense that these people have got to get around, and they've got to understand each other, and they've got to look at each other. They've got to trade. They've got to hunt with each other. And that's what we're talking about. Have any of you guys ever heard of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens sapiens hunting together? Has anyone ever said that to you? I've never heard it. Have you ever heard of one type of hominid working alongside another type of hominid? You never hear about it. Why? You hear about a Neanderthal having sexual intercourse with a Denisovian or a Homo sapiens sapien. You hear about that, but you don't actually hear about Neanderthals working alongside Denisovians. And then obviously they have offspring, some of them, right? You don't hear about them working together. And I'd like to know why, because this evidence is now saying that. Now, this individual at site number 1, the Isham site, the individual shows their genome shows 2.3% that the DNA, the genome itself, is Neanderthal. So at some time, that species that we find at that cave 45,000 years ago, sometime, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 generations, some actually say quite some time in the past, that type of hominid had a relationship with a Neanderthal, right? So in other words, that proves everything, doesn't it? So we've got this mixing. We've got this mix. It says here, the longest stretches of Neanderthal material may be this signature of mixing between Neanderthals and the ancestor of the Siberian individual within a few dozen generations of when he lived, though additional research is needed to ascertain. They say that the intermingling is a few generations. Others say it's like, 13,000 years ago. But the point we're trying to make here is that we are very much evolved. We're very much that package of humanity that I've been talking about for some time, and this is the way we're going. I wish I'd written down what that person in Lantwick Major said today, right? I really do, because I've just thought, wicked, I'm right. Isn't it great to be right? But to be honest with you, it's not good to be right sometimes, because you think, well, why is it the archaeologists have got it wrong for so many years? Why is this happened? So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to just put that in your mind, right? And I've got to get a drink in a minute. So I'm going to go and get this, and I want to share this other image. And we're going to do another little bit of Siberia now. So I'm just going to be back now. So just got to go and get a drink. Bear with me. I'm drinking too much. Have a look at this image.
They look tall, don't they?
They look as if they've had a party, got drunk, fallen down and died on the spot.
I'm back again. You can hear my voice. Right, so let's have another look at Siberia. Right, now this is a rather interesting find, because this is interesting because of the date. The 1st of October 2020, Sun newspaper. I know it's the Sun. The remains of a warrior woman have been unearthed from an ancient grave in Siberia. The grave actually contained 2 women, a man, a baby, and lots of weapons. So you can probably work out which is the woman, and the woman is said to have been found with the weapons. So it looks like she's the one there, sort of almost as if saying, "Look, I'm the woman. I'm the one in charge. Husband, go over there." And the mother-in-law or the mother's at the bottom here. They haven't actually done the DNA. They haven't done any DNA with this as well. But there's also a newborn child there as well. So this is a group. This hasn't been fully analyzed. This is from October last year, just a couple of months ago. And when I was going to do the subject of Siberia, I wrote down. I was writing down what I need to look at, and I wrote down the word Tagar wrong. I wrote the word down Taliaris, right? I don't know how I got from Tagar to Taliaris. And I couldn't find out. Taliaris turned out to be a people in the television series Star Trek. So I didn't do anything about the Tagars at all. But then the Tagars, as in this article that's come to us from October, I thought that was great. It's thought the people buried in it belonged to the ancient Tagar culture. One of the women and the only man in the grave presented as warriors. So we got a female warrior from 2,500 years ago. So if people ever turn around and say to me, women didn't have prominent roles in the past, well, this is another piece of evidence to say that they did. This is because they were buried with artifacts like bronze daggers, knives, and axes. They were buried with these artifacts, these items in front of you. The early Iron Age burial also contained an older woman of about 60 and a newborn infant. It's currently unclear if the individuals are related, so DNA analysis will be conducted. So it's a shame that we haven't got more information about this. And it goes on to say that there are bronze mirrors and a comb made of animal horn in the grave. The Tagar people were warriors who lived in what is now southern Siberia. So that's where we go, by the Kazakhstan border, Mongolia, north of China. There it is. The remains of a warrior woman have been unearthed from a 2,500-year-old grave in Siberia, along with a man, an older woman, and an infant. And I just thought that was spectacular. We're doing Siberia, so I thought, yes, we would do this. So, and this has been found last year, a few months back, and they were found in southern Siberia during a railway construction project. Now, lots of new things like this get reported elsewhere in the world, and you know, it's obviously because of projects like this that we're made aware. It's not clear how the 4 individuals in the grave died, but experts think it could have been due to illness. The grave was uncovered during an excavation ahead of railroad work in the southern part of Khakassia in Siberia. It's an important find because grave robbers looted most known Tagarian graves, but this wasn't known at the time, so that was great. Anthropologist Olga Batanina said the man and woman lying next to each other were about 35 and 45 years old, and the woman at their feet was about 60 or older. The remains of a newborn baby, no more than a month old, were also found in the burial, but fragments of its skeleton were scattered throughout the grave, possibly as a result of rodent activity. The Tagar culture, not to be confused with the fictional Game of Thrones Targaryen family, or the one in Star Trek. This culture lasted for 500 years, from around 700 to 200 years BC. More analysis of the gravesite will be conducted to try and teach us more about these ancient people. So I thought that was a great one to have actually looked at today. So where I'd like to go, you can see there, we're going to be looking at woolly mammoths after the break. We'll be looking at trying to clone mammoths. Vandalism caused to this site, but I need to get some of these images back up on the screen. So let's get to there. So what you should be seeing now is Vladimir, and that's actually what his name is. Can you see Vladimir? Is everyone there?
Yep.
Good. There's good old Vladimir. And we're going to actually have a, this is a little, I've tried this out the 4 times, the fourth time this piece that we're going to look at now. And the site that we're going to look at is from not sort of southern Siberia. This is actually from northern Siberia in the Arctic Circle. And that's where we're actually looking at the site of Yana. And it's a site that's dominated with lots of bones associated with mammoth and rhinoceros. The site with carved bones, the Yana rhinoceros site. We will go back over these images, and lots of excavations going on there, right? And there is some more of the excavation. So we know where we are when we look at this now. Let's sort of get to the Yana rhinoceros site. Rather interesting site because it's a site that has got lots of mammoth remains that lead into the later stuff after the break. So we'll think about all that. So here we go. A word of warning. Very recently, we know that there's evidence of people in North America 31,000 years ago. Now, when you think about that, this article was written a year ago, right? So the information that the author of this piece put together was in absence of the evidence that we get from North America. Now, the person writing this piece believed that people got to North America about 15,000 years ago. The evidence from this site is from 31,000 years ago in Siberia. The evidence in North America is 31,000 years ago. So whatever site this is, it's very interesting. But let's go with the flow. Ancient Siberia was home to previously unknown humans. So now we've got another hominid group. These are modern humans, but another group of people that their DNA, we don't know where this DNA comes from, genetically distinct from Eurasians and East Asians. So it's genetically distinct. So where did these people come from? So hang on a minute. Because I've been using this. Ah, right. Okay. Hang on a minute. Oh, bugger. I've got a little bit of a problem a minute. And it goes into that I've used this article a few times this week. Everybody, if you can just bear with me a minute. I'm just going to try and change something a minute. I just got to just go to that. Hang on a minute. Let's grab that. I've got to open a new window. And here we go. Excellent. I've got to do that. Yes, I'm happy. Good. Basically, I was using one screen and the information seemed to go. So what we're looking at, that sort of archaeology, let's sort of change the image. And there you go. Bingo. And there's the bones. Right. It was cold, remote, and involved picking fights with woolly mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses and saber-toothed tigers. But it seems ancient Siberia 30,000 years ago was home to a hardy and previously unknown group of humans. Scientists say the discovery could help solve long-standing mysteries about the ancestors of native North Americans. While it is commonly believed the ancestors of native North Americans arrived from Eurasia via a now submerged land bridge called Bridgend, exactly which groups crossed and gave rise to native North American populations has been difficult to unpick. Now scientists say they may have found one or two answers, but are they answers? That's what I ask, because, you know, we now know that people got to North America a lot earlier than when this person was writing. Writing in a journal Nature, the archaeologist drew on existing data from modern populations, as well as analyzing ancient DNA from the remains of 34 individuals obtained from sites around northeastern Siberia associated with the Yana River, dating from more than 31,000 years ago to up to 60,000 years ago. At the Yana River site, the Yana rhinoceros horn site, the key remains were fragments of 2 tiny human milk teeth shed by males, found at a place. This site was excavated in 2001. The site offers the earliest direct evidence of humans in northeastern Siberia, with finds also included bone items and stone tools. Indirect evidence of human populations in northeastern Siberia goes back to more than 40,000 years ago. But where did they come from? While it had previously been thought that these remains might be from the ancestors of native North Americans, the DNA suggests otherwise. So when we actually started looking at this and we started shouting at the screen on Tuesday morning, the one thing that we actually suddenly realized and suddenly thought, if people go to North America, why don't they actually think about going back, right? What about if people go to North America and they actually go back from North America to Asia? Nobody actually talks about that either. So that's an interesting one. What we see here is a much more complex story than what we believed was the case. So in other words, it's not just going from Siberia to North America. And likewise, and people have always gone from Siberia to North America. Now, this isn't simply the case, because the DNA of these individuals at this site that we're talking about with the Yana River, these people have got no DNA links to those people in North America at all, and they've got no real DNA links with anybody that we know about. The results reveal that these individuals were part of a previously unknown yet widespread group dubbed the ancient Northern Siberians by the team, who were genetically distinct from Western Eurasians and Eastern Asians. Who are they? They lived alongside big game like the mammoth and woolly rhinoceros. But folks, this is completely different from the site that we looked at near the Mongolian border a few moments back of people. These people are actually eating fish and they eat plants and not woolly mammoths and rhinoceroses. And don't say they wouldn't have been wandering around the landscape in southern Siberia. They probably were, but they didn't choose to eat them. So in other words, our ancestors are not always clubbing these great big beasts. So what we find is that instead, the analysis of the collection of genomes suggests the population that became the native North Americans was not the population that became the ancient North Americans. These have got no links with those people in North America. Now, that's very strange, very, very strange with the evidence that we have. Again, note say, Native Americans are not the first people in northeastern Siberia, as most people, if not everybody, thought. This is the first evidence we have, real evidence of something that is very, very different. Now, we don't really know why people went to North America. We don't know why these people are isolated and on their own, or maybe they're not isolated. We don't really know. But what we do know from the studies at this wonderful set of archaeology, if we sort of go back a little bit, as they're excavating alongside the Yana River, perfectly preserved archaeology there. More of it. And that's some of their sort of that's some of their tools. So these look like awls on the right, and these tools here, you've got clear carvings in them, whatever these were actually being used for. And more of the archaeology there, a mixture of human archaeology, rhinoceros archaeology, and mammoth archaeology. So if we sort of keep going with this a little bit further, so these people, the striking feature of the study is that humans were in the northeast of Siberia, even in difficult conditions, before we even believed they were there. This is what this is saying, nothing to do with North America. With maybe interesting, sizable populations of 500 odd people, which was quite a considerable population back in the time. So the other thing as well is we had no idea 30 years ago that people were actually living in this part of Siberia. We had no idea that there would be evidence of robust hunter-gatherer populations thriving up in the high Arctic 30,000 years ago, possibly up to 40,000 years ago. Anyway, going back to the other problem of the other peoples in Siberia, did they go over to North America? There's another question, not to do with these people. Did they go over to, worth thinking about, did they go over to North America because of the ice? Did they go over to North America because of the hostile conditions? People, it was hostile conditions every bloody where, right? So, you know, they could have equally have gone down south. So this North American question is a really interesting North American question, right? And this is for Pat. I hope in the next 10 years, Pat, we can basically totally rewrite history of North America. And it'll make those mounds of North America even more interesting. Watch this space. And Bill knows this. You know, I keep saying that, you know, there's so much more that we can learn out there. And yes, Bill, I agree with you a few years ago, and you still say it. Archaeologists talk lies, lies, and more lies. But the fact of the matter is, there is truth in some of these lies. And in fact, uncovering those lies is equally important. Changing history, understanding history, taking it into a nice direction. So, moving on again. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to look at some of these images, and then Anne can go in the kitchen and put the kettle on. Does that sound familiar? Good. Why is it the men never ever went into the kitchen in that hall? I've always wondered. Bill was invited in, but none of the men actually went in there. I can never work that out.
Oh, we've had a few little hugs in there. How many girls?
Bill, you shouldn't be saying these things. You shouldn't be saying these things at all. You know, it was just like I can remember, right? Anne had a liaison with Edward in the kitchen, and at that point, all the men were banned. Anyway, look at this little article, right? I got a really nice little article in front of us, and so what we've done, what I'm trying to do today is give you loads of little nice things that are sort of linked together about Siberia. It's sometimes a very difficult task to do this. So I did that find about you know, that grave and sort of saying, you know, about a female warrior. It's obviously Siberia, and we've looked at two different types of people in Siberia. Now we go into a different area, but it's all linked again. So if we, again, what I'd like to do is look at these images quickly, and then I want to share this article. So are we looking at a bed of bones?
Yep.
Okay, and the archaeologist Vladimir, who's mentioned in his next article, bed of bones. And this was actually in the article I've just done, talking about how this chart says it all. So these ancient northern Siberians linked not really to anyone, right? And then you got these Paleo-Siberians on the right here. It's sort of saying, let's watch this. Paleo-Siberians and ancestral Native Americans 25,000 years ago. Well, they can't be, because we've already got people in North America 31,000 years ago. But I think the point being made here is that there's no reason why you can't have people going to North America, and why you can't have people going from North America back to Asia. And if anyone likes their equus, their horse, right? It's said that there's talk of the horse coming from North America into Asia. And you're thinking, well, if the horse can come from North America into Asia, oh, right, here we go. Why can't people come from North America into Asia? Why can't it be the other way around? And there's something rather interesting, and again, I'll mention Pat. Pat knows obviously more about North America than any of us because she comes from there, right? But you've got to be very careful when you're talking about archaeology in America, because as we saw a few weeks ago when we looked at the mound builders, because I think it was about a decade ago or more, decade and a half ago, they found archaeological remains in Pennsylvania, near Wyoming, as we saw with the mound builders, but they found evidence in Pennsylvania. And this said that people were living in Pennsylvania 15,000 years ago, well before the Clovis site, which is in central North America, right? The Clovis sort of cave site, and that was the benchmark, you know. Clovis, that's the early evidence that we get in North America 14,500 years ago. They find this evidence in Pennsylvania and say, this is 500 years older. So some archaeologists started to say, actually, this is proof that the first people in North America were actually from Europe. The first people in North America were actually white. So you can see the problem that we've got here now, right? What they should have done, let's get people who are thinking sensible. There may have been people coming from Europe. Not there were white people coming from Europe. Let's move that. There may have been people coming from Europe into North America. And that's why they're in Pennsylvania before Clovis, right? But equally, I could argue that people could be coming from Europe across the ice into North America. Go on, one of you say rubbish. Europe into North America well before the Vikings and any of that type of stuff. People are coming from Asia into North America. And people might be going from North America back into Europe and all these other places. So there's no reason why you can't have this happening. And I think that's a reasonable thing. It's not racist. It's not racial. It's not about skin color or anything. That's how we should be talking about history and archaeology. Trying to make it sensible, interesting. That's why we do it. We're not shouting and screaming, I am right. Actually, I could be wrong about all this. There might be another thing coming up in 10 years' time that might completely change everything that I've said. No? Let's hope it's not that serious. So again, going back to the Yana site that we're going to look at in regards to this next piece, that I may actually have a break before I do it. The Yana River that's there and the erosion. Now, this is natural erosion, right? Where they're excavating, finding this layer of archaeology. Maybe this is sort of in some kind of trapped pit or something, because the strata around it's a very different color, and this sort of strata in the middle is almost as if everything's been trapped in a sort of glacial hollow of some kind. And then this leads us into the next piece, rhinoceros femurs and humerus and scapula and all the rest of it, right? And other bones from other animals. Now, the interesting thing I would say is that on the open market, why is he talking about money? Yeah. On the open market, you could probably buy one of these for about 50, 60 quid each, right? That's probably a trade price, maybe selling these for about 150, 200 pounds a piece, each one of these, right? Collectors would have these at that price, dating back to 31,000 years ago or whatever, right? That gives value to these. And that nicely leads us into the next piece, but we'll do that in a minute. That there along the side, this is damage being caused by people trying to find this type of evidence to actually sell on the open market. And this is the type of damage being caused. Hang on, go back again. If you think about, oh, hang on, I've lost an image a minute. Sorry, I'm just losing the plot a minute. Right, so if you can think about this type of landscape, and then this is what this landscape looks like when, go on to the next article, drum roll, keep the drum roll going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. This new article, warning of vandalism to mammoth graveyard in Arctic from unscrupulous bone hunters. I thought this was great, but I hadn't come across this. I'd heard of like native. So actually next week, I haven't mentioned that next week we're actually doing the cloud people of South America. And in regards to South America, people are looting archaeological sites. But when you think about it, a villager in, say, Peru might be able to get, for a whole cadaver, they might be able to get 250 quid, right? Which would probably be about half a year's money. And they sell that, and then that gets auctioned or sold private, and that goes for thousands, right? These guys are doing the same. But you know what? I'm actually going to have a break after I've said this, right? So, warning of vandalism to mammoth graveyards in the Arctic from unscrupulous bone hunters. Unique archaeological and paleological sites face destruction from gangs seeking to raid and sell prehistoric remains, right? I don't want anyone to say anything about what I'm just about to say. Questions that you've got about everything else we've done before this, you can question what I'm about to say when we finish today, right? Listen. I said, well, these Siberians, it's their heritage, right? And mammoth tusks. What's the difference between quarrying mammoth tusks and coal mining? What's the difference between slate quarrying and quarrying rhinoceros bones to sell on the market? It's still resources. These people need the money. Is there anything wrong in that? To archaeologists, it's completely ethically wrong. We're going to leave that there. I don't want us to discuss that because it'll spoil the rest of this. And by the way, folks, I'm feeling absolutely exhausted, so I'm going to need a cup of tea after this now. So if we can keep the questions brief, and if I can get my screen back on, hang on there, and stop sharing. And right, let's see if there are any questions. Pat. Pat has been very good. I can't imagine. This is wrong. Pat's staying awake in my lectures now. It's wrong. So, Pat, anything?
No, it's fine.
No, sorry, you just go on.
Oh, just because it's very interesting. Glad to hear they're finding it. And,
yeah. Am I right in what I'm saying about North America in regards to the attitudes of people there?
Yeah, they don't seem to care.
Well, I didn't say that, but I agree with you, and I'll say that as well. Yeah, go with that. Del.
Oh, really interesting about the destruction, though, of those so-called wetland areas in northern Siberia. I've watched a few things on some of these mammoth finds, usually because somebody wants to collect the DNA to clone. But one of the ways they get them out of these areas is by high-powered jet wash.
We'll be doing that, Del. Yeah. Yes. Carry on.
They're losing an awful lot just to get one viable tusk or something.
Can I just make a comment? Yeah, this has never occurred to me either. I've said a few things that have never occurred to me before. In Russia, there's this rush to try to find Second World War tanks and burial grounds from the Second World War and find the helmets and all the rest of it, you know. And I'm just thinking, well, there'll be nothing at all in the future for people to look at from the Second World War. It'll all be gone, right? So, you know, the point I'm trying to make is that we understand Roman archaeology from the archaeology we're finding from the Roman period. People in the Roman period didn't say, oh, what we're going to do, we're going to dig up our villas and we're going to take all the frigging stuff out. What has changed in our minds to think like this? You know, what has changed? The Siberian thing, Del, is completely different. That's a different thing, but it's that it's got a level that we've got to find everything. And I don't want this because we're finding so much that we've got in museums. There's so much in museums that we can learn, as Bill learned last night. We demonstrated. I don't know what this rush is. I'm struggling with it. I really am. Bill.
Normally, the more research you do in any particular subject, and it needn't be archaeology, any branch of science, what have you. The more data is collected, and the more it leads to a consensus of what the truth is. When it comes to researching and digging out the remains of different groups of ancient man, it seems to be not going in the direction of focusing on a point where you can come to a sort of truth or a conclusion. It's got to be a jigsaw puzzle. And the more they find, to me, this situation gets more complicated and makes it more difficult to understand where man actually came from.
It looks like it
came from more than one part of the world, many different parts. They evolved in a different way in different parts of the world, and then came together, and you saying interbred, and it goes on and on and on. Yeah.
That's everything that I think. That's basically that's what I think, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Bill, right, you are right in everything that you said, because I can't have an argument with anybody about this, because the information's always new and there's always stuff to develop in your mind, and you can't side on anything now, because your argument is so flawed whatever way you look. So basically I say, we're out of Africa. This is what happened. This is what we were told at school. This is what we told 10 years ago, right? But that's all wrong. I can remember doing a talk in Bridgend in 2007 on a board in that Norton Hall Church. And I would be saying, right, we had Homo habilis here, Homo erectus, but we're thinking that they may have overlapped. And then we got this new guy called Hedjobazensis, and then we got Neanderthals going here, Sapiens going here, and I'm not really sure that Neanderthals become extinct. And everyone said, oh, of course they did. And then somebody said, I passed a guy the other day that had a massive eyebrow and all the rest of it. Now, that was complicated. This is so complicated, and I couldn't do a lecture like that anymore. Do you know, one of the ways I teach in archaeology, right? And I'll confess this to you all finally, right? One of the ways I do is to come up with ideas and conclusions, right? And practically all of the time I'm right? It's because I'm lucky. I've always been lucky in archaeology, right? And the other day I was looking at something, and it said, oh, the Neolithic period was a time of community and people coming together and work. At one time they were working as families, and at one time they were working as communities. And then suddenly you had kings and leaders, and they were supported. And I thought, that's almost out of a lecture I would have done 10 years ago, but somebody's saying it now. That's easy, Bill, right? But you can't come to any conclusion with this. It can't go in any direction. And this is why this is so amazing, because it's great being wrong, because when you're wrong, it's even more exciting.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making, yeah.
It's great being wrong here. It's brilliant because it was easy in the beginning because we were learning, you know, fundamentals. And personally, I hadn't even heard of any of the archaeologists. You know, it was just right fundamental archaeology, and it was simple. But now, because of everyone, it's wealth. You know, people are more wealthy. There's more people are more wealthy and able to be able to do the researching and the digging and the, you know, like even amateurs and things like that. And
except for Del.
I think it's got to become something else. I think you know, this is really advanced now. You know, this is where we've come to, Carl, in 13 years. You know, I mean, it is, you know, it is amazing that there's so much new information coming all the time.
I couldn't do the talks that I did before because
no, it's hard, it's hard to do archaeology now, I think.
It is very hard. It is very hard. Do you know what, right? Do you know what? Michelle's sitting over there one day, and I'm just trying to do something, and she says, "Well, have you seen what's on the computer now? Have you seen this?" And I'm just thinking, because I know, even though I haven't seen what she's showing me, right? Michelle could keep telling me this and this all single day because I know there's too much out there. You can never do it all.
Yeah, my husband always prided himself in his general knowledge.
He doesn't know shit.
Now, every 5 minutes, I'm, oh, did you know this? Did you know this? And I mean, it must be really galling, you know, it is. Because,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You know, your husband's a highly intelligent man, but the fact of the matter is, right, if he gets the wrong questions, he's going to know nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's
and I mean, you know, Google. Like, I used to hate it when people come along to archaeology class and were Googling in class. You know, to actually, you know, query what you were saying or offer you information, you know. And I used to think, that's, you know, it's well, I didn't think that's what was appropriate.
It wasn't appropriate. And it wasn't appropriate. And do you know what? Right? Do you know what? I'll give you an example. Right? I had two people with me. We went to Flemingston once in the Vale of Glamorgan. It was like 2015 or something like that. Right? So we went in this field, right? And I said, look at this and that. And they stood behind me and they say, oh, but Carl, this should be over there. And that, and they had this frigging thing on their phone, right? And I just thought, I'm not doing this anymore because this is just wrong. You know, this spoils what we're doing. It really spoils what we're doing. 1 second, everyone stay there. Hello? Hello? Yeah, hi, I'm in the middle of teaching in a minute. You'll have to call me back. Cheers. Cheers. Yeah, that's fine. So you know what? Sorry about that. I can say I was on my break then anyway. So the fact of the matter is, when this they said this and it spoiled it because I just thought when me and Bill and Pat and whoever else has been with me, right? We used to go into a field, right? None of them used to say, oh, what's this? None of them used to say, oh, this is what Google says, or this is it. We used to have a nice explore, and usually we could come to nice conclusions, right? I remember Bill and I and Kathy, we went to a site in the Vale of Glamorgan, and it was the remains of a ruined church, right? And we managed to put it all together with no information with us, and then it was great. But when you got somebody with Google, it completely wrecks it. You're right. And Henry, just quickly, Henry's a bit of a bloody swat. He comes up with stuff, but Henry doesn't spit it out. He sends links through, which is great. I like that. I like the way Henry does it.
Yeah.
He's not today. No questions. I've just really enjoyed it so far.
Good. Oh, well, I'll just go downhill after the break. All right, Dan, we're taking a break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's whiskey time.
Right.
Oh.
Well on, Bill. Well on.
You
Well
probably
on.
means that to you, Bill.
I do.
How are you feeling, Bill?
Yes.
Now, just before the break, we were talking about this controversial area of these tusks, these mammoth tusks being actually taken away from Siberia and sold, ground down, used for various different things. So the little bit, what you see there, the scale of vandalism in the Arctic and damage caused to its unique monuments is huge. At least 7 woolly mammoth cemeteries in the Siberian Arctic have been ruined over the past decade. The claim comes at a time of unprecedented interest in the remains of the extinct species, with hunters looking for ivory bone, but also now ancient carcasses, whilst archaeologists are looking for paleontologists and so on, other experts are looking for the evidence. That's the second category. And then you've got other scientists looking for intact DNA in order to bring the giant animals back to life, which is, so you've got the sort of 3 interests there, really. The scale of the vandalism in the Arctic and damage caused to its unique monuments, paleontological, geological, and archaeological, is huge. Vladimir Pitt Ulko, head of the expedition for the Yana River, as part of the Russian Academy for Sciences. It is not only locals, citizens of Russia, who are participating in this process in northeastern Siberia, but people from bordering countries. The financial environmental damage is compatible to the damage from illegal amber extraction in the Kaliningrad region. This vandalism seriously complicates research work in the Siberian Arctic, he said. Illegal diggers are becoming a major obstacle and danger for scientists, while sites are being denuded of valuable material. Again, in some cases, illegal hunters and diggers use pumps, Adele mentioned, to thaw out permafrost, which has existed for thousands of years, in order to expose remains of ancient mammoths or other species. Okay, we mentioned some of the arguments earlier on. There is one slight positive to them taking these trunks away, and the positive is that by having so many trunks on the open market, I do believe the law says that ivory from living animals is illegal, but ancient ivory isn't. Now, if the market is flooded with all this ivory, it basically means that the value of trunks from, not trunks. Why am I saying trunks? It's you, Anne. You just got me confused. No, so basically, the ivory itself from Africa, from living animals, could be said to be deemed not as valuable as it once was. So obviously, hunting elephants isn't very profitable because the market has been flooded with this ivory from Siberia. So that could be seen as a sort of remote positive. The other thing that I mentioned this morning was that the ivory from these sites could be when they're excavating on these sites, they're coming up with so much of this that they could easily say, right, here it is, take it away, do whatever you like with it, because the archaeologists are interested in intact context. They're interested in excavating archaeology intact. So the tusks come out, we've got lots of tusks anyway at this minute, so they can go and the archaeologists can continue on with their work. Maybe that's a compromise, because at this minute, so much damage is being done to these sites that the ivory is just being taken out. And so you can see that face there along the Yana River, and then it goes down to something like this. So the landscape is completely destroyed to get these tusks out. Everything is, the rich organic evidence is going, and then these tusks go on to the open market. So there's lots of different arguments to actually look at here. And there's the archaeologists excavating the Yana site. Such action can erode the shores of the site. So this need to make profit, this need to make money from these tusks, is not only damaging the archaeology, but is eroding the shores of the rivers. But obviously, if the archaeologists go in there and they excavate and they say, right, here's the tusks, take them away, we want everything else, then that could actually be a compromise. And actually, it doesn't sound as mad as it sounds, because back in 1956, when they are excavating the Mithras temple in London, the archaeologists were excavating along, and there were thousands of people visiting the excavation of the Mithras temple in London. This Mithras temple was the same building that was placed a few streets down the road to preserve it, and now it's back at the original spot underneath a Bloomsburg building that has actually been erected on that spot. So they've actually put it in this basement. You can actually see it, blah, 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 blah. But in 1956, they were excavating there, and they had so many tourists that they thought, we need to make some money out of this. So they're actually selling off the artifacts. So those artifacts paid for this and whatever, and they were able to get the site, and everybody was happy. So it wasn't ethically right. It was not ethically right to sell off the artifacts, but the archaeology was saved. So if you've got to have a trade-off, In other words, you know, we're not children, are we? We can't always get what we want. We can't always get the wonderful lolly in the shop, right? But if you maybe did something for the shopkeeper, you know, brushing out the shop, you might actually get the lolly. This is what the carrot and the stick approach. These people are going to get that there in front of you. They're going to get it. They're going to own what you're actually seeing on the screen, right? You are seeing the article on the screen, aren't you?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. You're still seeing the article. You can see all the tusks in front of you. Yeah. All that ivory. So these people are going to be wanting that ivory, right? They're going to destroy the archaeological sites to get it. Anyway, whatever you say, whatever you try to stop these people, they will go in and get it. So surely the archaeologists can actually say, right, you can have the ivory and we'll have the archaeology. We'll excavate this. You don't have to do any work, right? You can have this and whatever. There's only so much you can learn from these tusks, this ivory. Such a threat applies to practically all archaeological objects in the Arctic Siberia, because most of them are related to mammoth bones remains in one way or another. I don't know what's happened to the rhinoceros sites. Under threat too are the Hikov Islands in the New Siberian Islands and Yana site in northern Yakutia. And you can see there that there's, I tried to work out earlier on, there's about 100 tusks there. There's about 100 sets of ivory. So if you can think about on the open market, these could be, each individual one could be worth thousands, right? Obviously the Siberian Siberian peoples in the Yana district are probably getting maybe 50, 60 pounds a tusk, right? But then again, if you calculate the amount that are here, that's actually quite a lot of money. Now, somebody could be getting very rich, but they're getting very rich by destroying the archaeology. So you have to have a compromise. I've done archaeology for too long to realize that you can't save everything. You can't always have it your own way. I used to like having it my own way in archaeology, and you never used to get it, right? You never used to get it in archaeology at all. You know, I'm long in the tooth now. And when we were in the University of Ireland, not in the University of Ireland, when we were in Leicester University, this is the subject that we were doing. We had a whole module on heritage, on how it should be preserved, how to sort of deal with different sort of interests. And dealing with different interests is the way to actually make everybody happy. Illegal hunters and diggers. So you see them digging there, and that hang on a minute. I just got to get rid of. I got to just turn my phone off. Hang on a minute. Right, airplane mode. Good. Sorry about that. So you know, you got to try and keep everybody happy, and that's probably the way to do it. I'm sure a tusk hunter would be happy. We're doing the archaeology. By the way, mate, here's a tusk. Now go away. I'm sure that could work. And the other thing as well is it'd also work quite well, because this next thing here is really interesting. In October 2016, 20th of October, cold and starving mammoth tusk hunters were rescued from remote Bolshoi Yakisikovsky Island, part of the New Siberian chain. 6 of the men were airlifted in a critical condition, suffering from exposure. So, you know, people are risking their lives, and I'm surely there has to be a compromise. We don't want people to die looking for tusks, right? You might think that they deserve to die for destroying archaeological sites. Actually, that's what I used to think. Like that's how I used to think. But mind you, I still agree with what Saddam Hussein used to do. Anyone looting the archaeology of Iraq, they used to be executed. And to be honest with you, I agreed with what he used to do, because the heritage and history, the identity of Iraq was more important than having any problems with executing people in Iraq. I completely agreed with that, right? But these people shouldn't die going out searching for these tusks. If these people could be involved and say, right, we'll all work together, right? You find these tusks, right? We'll send the archaeologist in there. You can take the tusks away from you. The archaeologist can work. That would work. It would work. You're not going to stop this, so you've got to work with it. And to be honest with you, right, I'll say something. And you know, we're getting to the last minutes of my regular lecture with you. And I'd like to say this, right? I'd like to say this. Years ago, if Bill said he'd bought a metal detector, I'd say, well, you know, I'm not happy with that, Bill, right? But in 2018, when the damage was being caused to the archaeological sites at the 5 Mile Lane by archaeologists, and the people that were saying friendly things about me on the internet, who were supporting me, were actually metal detect enthusiasts, right? The same people that I despised, right? I actually thought, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And actually my own people were turning against me, right? And I actually thought, right, you know, the archaeologists are doing more damage than the metal detect enthusiasts now. You've got to relook at how you think. And Bill, that's what I think now. So just go ahead and do what you need to do. And if you want, go off and find something, just let me know, right? And we'll send in the archaeology. And this is what I'm saying here. I'm not a hypocrite, right? That's what I'm saying here. Now, what I'd like to do is just show you a few images now, right? And we've got another article I would like to do with you. So we're gonna go on to these images. So this is the damage being caused. We can stop that damage. We can have everyone working together. Do you know what? You know what, Bill? Right? I'm talking to you, Bill, because that site and Del, that site in Barry that was just archaeologists excavated in the 1980s, and in the 1990s they abandoned the Bronze Age site. They didn't cover it up, right? And I'm saying, you know, we got. I know it's 30 years on, but we can still save some of what's at that site. And archaeologists are saying, oh no, it's damaged now, but you caused it. Oh yeah, but it's damaged. It doesn't deem an archaeological site anymore, but you caused it, right? The people are actually coming on supporting me as a metal detect enthusiast, saying, why don't you assist us with metal detecting? If we find something, it'll prove the site's still valuable. That's the metal detect enthusiast saying that. That's more sensible than what the archaeologists are saying. So, you know, you get long in the tooth and things change, right? So that mammoth tusk is there. Send in the archaeologists, excavate that, hand that to a tusk dealer. It's fine. Give it to them. Is there archaeology in as well? And the other thing as well is, it's the Siberian people's archaeology, right? What right have we got to tell them what to do with their archaeology? I think this elephant, this baby elephant's actually called Mika or Nika or something like that. So there are several examples of them have been found. Look at that guy there, you know. Now, if he could say where that came from, we could find the rest of a skull of a mammoth, right? But he's not going to tell us because we're not interested in helping him, and he's not going to be interested in helping us. So nobody can win. Nobody's a winner. And I tell you what, right? Siberia is so big that some people still believe that mammoths still wander around, right? And mind you, an image I showed Bill yesterday, right? I think Pat was with us yesterday. We saw about a site that had been found in Aberdeen. This wonderful sort of pick dish, banked and ditched enclosure hill fort type thing, which was so obvious that it's only just been found as a big site. You're thinking, well, you know, things are still out there to be found. We've all got to work together, right? So, you know, if a mammoth tusk hunter found this, right, and you think, right, we can't tell anyone that we found this in the ground, right? That's lost to us forever, right? But if we said to a mammoth tusk hunter, right, you can keep your tusks, right? But if you find anything like this, let us know and we'll work there. And any other tusk that we find, you can have. I think that would work. You guys must be thinking I'm absolutely crazy for saying this, but I think we've got to start thinking outside the box. You know, archaeologists, Bill said this earlier on. This is more or less what Bill said, right? In another direction. We can't keep archaeology to ourselves anymore. We can't sort of dominate it. We've got to allow people to feel an expression for what they're seeing. We've got to allow them to understand, and by involving everybody. You know, looks a bit strange, this image, but okay, a mammoth tusk hunter, love it. Well, we can all do this together. We can keep this guy safe, He can make a little bit of money for his family. We get what we want, job done, and we get the perfect DNA for people who actually want to clone mammoths, even though I don't agree with it. Right? This is an image of a mammoth from the 1800s. Now that tusk is huge, right? It's absolutely huge. It's massive, right? So that you know, that's from the 1800s. That's a mammoth. We don't find these types of mammoths anymore, but they are still out there. And maybe some of those tusk hunters can actually help us find them. That would be great. And this as well, we still are finding brilliant examples of, you know, heads and other limbs and so on of these creatures. So I've got one more article and we'll share it. And you share, and bingo. So here we go. Remains of 10,000-year-old woolly mammoth pulled from Siberian lake. Nothing like the one we just seen, right? But again, they're getting rarer and rarer to find intact ones. You might find loads of this ivory out there, but actually finding skin and tendons and excrement and all these other things are getting more and more difficult to actually come across. So I've just got to swap my screen, right? So if I swap my screen, and if we go to, right, can somebody tell me what you're seeing on your screen?
Cloning a woolly mammoth.
Right, we got that again.
Japanese scientists make breakthrough in cloning a woolly mammoth.
Oh, you're on the wrong screen. You've got to get to this screen. Got that?
Yeah.
Remains of a 10,000-year-old woolly mammoth pulled from Siberian lake.
Exactly. So it's getting rarer and rarer to find intact examples. So Russian scientists are poring over the uniquely well-preserved bones of a 10,000-year-old woolly mammoth after completing the operation to pull them from the bottom of a Siberian lake. You know, when we think about the last time people in Britain saw woolly mammoths was probably on Doggerland about as they started to drown about 7,500 years ago, when Doggerland disconnected, when water swept through and we were disconnected from Europe 8,000 years ago. And the last of them on you know, that's the last time we saw them, but it's quite likely that some of them may still have existed on some of the was the Andaman Islands up until about 1,400 years ago, and they just died off, right? They just died off. But there could be some still out there today, a bit like the Sasquatch and the abominable snowman. But then again, I say that with a bit of irony, but the great David Attenborough believes that maybe creatures like the Sasquatch and abominable snowman do exist, and that's coming from an expert. So you never know. There might be some woolly mammoth still out there, but it's really highly unlikely. And there might be some intelligence in Barry, and there might be people who don't nick wheels. Experts spent 5 days scouring the silk of Lake Pekanelava in the remote Yamal Peninsula for the remains, finding tendons, skin, and even excrement. 90% of the bones and everything was found, recovered in 2 expeditions. There's the gang, part of the gang. And you've got the spinal column with all the sinews and everything still, it's all still bound together. So that's great. So this one would have been about 3 meters in height. So such finds are happening with increasing regularity in Siberia, but not as well preserved as the ones in the past, thawing out quite rapidly, and this is causing us a great problem. So this woolly mammoth that you can see in front of us, those remains up to 20 years old, and about 10 yeah, we go 3 meters tall, called Tadibi. And you can see you can see the spinal column intact altogether, and you can see that you've actually got some of the hide of the woolly mammoth still there today. So you've got some of the sinews and everything with this still together, which is amazing. Some of the tendons, some of the spine, the lower spine still connected by the tendons and skin. We assume the bones were preserved in anatomical order, but the first and the second days of our expedition showed that it was true only about the back part of the skeleton, and the rest of the bones were in such a chaotic order that it was impossible to guess where they were. It sort of goes on to repeat what we've got there, and about the vertebra. Of particular interest is the excrement. Because it will contain details of the animal diet as well as pollen and other environmental clues. The cause of the mammoth death is not clear yet, as no signs of injury were found on the bones. Researchers have found other fossils dating up to 30,000 years ago in regards to mammoths. And another little thing here, we get to the end of this article, in December last year, it's talking about scientists circulated images in December of a prehistoric puppy thought to be 18,000 years old that was found in the permafrost region of Russia's Far East in 2018. So last look at that image on the left there. You can see all that's really perfectly preserved. Nice hunk of meat there. I'm sure Bill would have a nice gnaw at that. And finally, the last little thing I'd like to do is just show you, get back to the other screen. Japanese scientists, and we'll just go over this quickly. So Japanese scientists make breakthrough in cloning a woolly mammoth. Cells recovered from a 28,000-year-old mammoth have shown signs of life, although experts say the prehistoric beasts are unlikely to be walking among us soon. Cell regeneration technology could have other benefits. So yeah, I think that one is actually called Mika. Actually, the little one actually recovered not so long ago. Look at all that, perfect there, and that guy's got a coffee there as well. He's drinking away. That is unbelievable. He's got a little coffee cup. He's there with the gloves on it. Oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Anyway, a team of scientists from Japan and Russia announced a significant step forward in an effort to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. Although they cautioned that tabloid reports saying they are a decade away from a Jurassic Park style attraction populated by mammoths, the saber-toothed tigers are wide from the mark. But some scientists reckon it could be done. Instead, the scientists say they hope the technology they are developing can be used to prevent species that are today on the verge of extinction from disappearing forever. So what they're trying to say is that they try and reactivate cells that are 28,000 years old. They split those cells, they divide them, and that could obviously create new life from that species. And they're saying that if they could do this, they could get samples from existing beasts that are possibly in range for extinction. Then, we could bring them back if they do go extinct. And my argument is that they shouldn't let them go extinct in the first place, right? Anyway, in a study published in the journal Scientific Reports, researchers announced that they have managed to recover cells from the left hind leg of a juvenile mammoth that was discovered in the Siberia permafrost in 2011. Cell nuclei from the mammoth, believed to have been Roman, what is today northern Russia, around 28,000 years ago, was successfully implanted into mouse shell cells. Biological activity in transplanted cells of the several dozen specimens, 5 showed biological reactions that are required immediately before cell division can begin. Scientists at the university have been working for 20 years and we have made good progress. And this is a major development, they say. We have been able to confirm that the cells are able to react, stimulated, after being transplanted in the mouse embryos, even after such a long time, and that there is biological activity. While this is possible development, none of the samples produced the cell division that is required for a mammoth to be coaxed back to life. And and the 9-strong team, it goes on to say, but we are still many steps away from Jurassic Park. The technology to resurrect an extinct creature does not yet exist, although I will not deny it probably will in the future. Here we go. We just have to continue the research. That will come as a disappointment to those who saw headlines last year about creating parks for deers and extinct horses and cave lions and all the rest of it. Nevertheless, experts continue to scour the ice fields and permafrost of Siberia in search for specimens. This is why you've got to bring the ivory hunters into the, you've got to bring them in. You've got to say, right, you can have the ivory, right? We'll even help you take it out the ground, but tell us where this stuff is so that we can excavate it. That's what needs to happen. Because if the archaeologists work separately from these tusk thieves, as we call them, nothing's going to change. So they need to find better preserved conditions of these beasts before the permafrost completely goes. Sufficiently well preserved to still retain viable cells. There's all these different questions, whether it's ethically correct. Should resurrecting mammoths be a reality? I personally, I don't think it should be. There are a lot more important things to do. Stem cell research to stop Parkinson's and so on. You know, this is what we should be doing, not resurrecting these beasts. I cannot say that we should go ahead and bring these creatures back to life, as there are many things that we must consider. There are ethical issues. These animals may not be comfortable in 2020 or whenever, 2025, whenever they're going to do this. The environment will be completely different. There are countless things that have to be discussed. Right now, one of the scientists said, I am more interested in studying the factors that influence how animals become extinct and helping to prevent those that are in danger of dying out from disappearing today. So we've got to think now, what can we do to stop this happening again to species that exist today? I believe that non-destructive science can be beneficial in some way or another. And it is clear that regenerating life can be positive, but I would personally prefer that we turn our attention and this sort of knowledge to endangered species that are on the earth right now. You know, it goes on to say, here we go, biodiversity fading. Up here in the mountains, there are fewer and fewer moths, bees, insects, and small birds every year, or so it seems, disappear at an increasing rate due to the loss of their traditional habitats, interruptions in their food chain, the use of pesticides and chemicals, and more land being given over to farming. And then there are problems with issues such as poaching of elephants and so on, rhinoceroses in Africa, and all those things are actually around today. And finally there, my last word to you guys, the work that these scientists are doing is fascinating, but I believe it is fantasy. Indeed, I hope it is fantasy when some people start talking about bringing these creatures back to go into theme parks or zoos. And on that note, let's leave Yucca, transported from Siberia, to not be used to bring back mammoths, but to be used for a more scientific purpose, to help life around us to continue instead of becoming extinct, like these woolly mammoths become extinct, hundreds, thousands, or whenever they become extinct in the past. So we're going to call that a day now. Are there any questions? Pat?
No questions. It's good.
Bill?
Well, just it's very impressive what they're doing actually, and the implications could be huge. But I think it's important to realize that the natural world is in a bad way declining. It's in the news all the time, every day, day out, you know. And I don't think governments worldwide are listening as they should.
The one thing I would say, Bill, right? I think this was said last year, and nobody really saying this anymore. If we were able to make so much effort with COVID, right, why can't we do this with the climate?
That's right, yeah. And the one thing which is causing all these problems in the world is something that no one talks about, and that's uncontrolled population growth.
Population. Bill, you're the only other person that I know agrees with me on that.
What's driving everything, all the problems, yeah.
And the good thing is, the great news was, since 1988, our population is now falling. That's the first time since 1988, and may it go on so.
Well,
Really?
I think the birth rate's definitely gonna fall this year, don't you?
Lots of millennials don't want children, and they're looking around them thinking this world's gone to shit. Mind my French.
Yeah. And also because of this COVID, we're not supposed to get close to each other. So how do you make babies?
Well,
Anyway,
thank you for that, Anne. And Henri, you next, and then we'll do Del as a last say.
No, that was very good. I've got no questions at all. Thank you very much. Very, very enjoyable.
And Del, and then I will have my last word. Del?
Yeah, no questions, Carl. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, so folks, on behalf of Archaeology Cymru, as of next week, I'll be handing over to Jessica. And I know you'll look after her. And it's been great teaching you for the past 13 years. And this isn't it over for me. You will see me in the background. And if Jessica ever needs some cover, I will be doing that. So you'll have to put up with me. But as of now, Jessica will be your boss. So thank you very much over the years. So go on, Bill.
One last question. Will Jessica be able to give any announcements like you do before or after the talks affecting the group? Or will you still keep that on board and come in when necessary to tell us?
You will still have announcements, and I will make sure that you still do have announcements. And we're in an important time at this minute because behind the scenes there's just so much going on. If you can appreciate this, I've got to post it on my screen saying that we've got to do some project work in Pontypridd in the next few weeks because we're being paid to do it. We've had this major thing come up with the dinosaur footprints. We got publication stuff coming out, and that's on top of everything else we do for Archaeology Cymru. And to be honest with you, it was starting to become impossible to do all of it. And seeing as I'm not well, it's just so this is why we've got to do this. And obviously we've got that diversity, and hopefully things will go onwards and upwards.
Yeah, keep us informed, because some of us may want to sort of contribute or help in some way. You don't know, so just keep us informed. That's all.
We'll put it this way: I've got to start the classes and sort of maybe end them in some weeks. So obviously that's what we'll do. So thanks for that, Bill. So anyway, many thanks everybody. Really appreciate this. And Pat, Bill, Anne, Henry, and little Del. Au revoir, mon petit fleur. Le route de la plan nesquire. And diolch yn fawr I chi. And Nosta, and I'll see you all again.
Thanks, Carl. Thank you very much.
And don't forget tonight as well with Jessica with her thing tonight. Take care, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henry. I'll see you soon, babe.
Yeah, we'll do. And I'll have the red dress back soon.
By the way, when you're going out walking your dog, right? Never say to anyone, "I'm going dogging."
Well, that won't happen because I haven't got a dog.
Hey, hang on. Glenda did that as well. There's like 3 women I've known who've done that, who's come a cropper.
Oh, dear.
And you're just thinking, it's like, it's so crude and crass. And you're just thinking, well, I don't know.
Oh, I'll leave you with that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Look after yourself.
Henri. I will. Take care, Henri. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for your spot, Henri. Bye.
Question.
Bye-bye.
Carl, is she going to be teaching the same topics as you, or different topics, or?
She's going to be teaching the same topic. So what she did last week was that she listened in on the morning, or
Yeah.
she listened to the recording, and then she had all the images.
Oh, good. Okay.
And it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right.
So it's
long.
good. See how
I'll
it goes.
see you on
Anyway.
Wednesday night. Okay.
Yeah. Take care. No, that's great. You should be there tonight and Wednesday. So yeah, I'll see you Wednesday. Anyway. Yeah. Brilliant. Take care, Pat. Bye. Bye. I forgot there that Jess is doing Wednesdays. Well, I'll be seeing everybody anyway. I'll just anyway, thanks very much. This is me over and out on a Thursday afternoon, handing over to Jess. So you should have to watch this. Take care, guys. Thank you. Thanks for watching.